On today's Locked On Angels, we're a little over a week into the season, 4 series down, and you asked about redoing the lineup, the starting rotation, and taking a chainsaw to this roster, and much, much more. We're taking all your questions for Fanmail Friday, so get ready. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. If you want to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. First of all, leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. Helps us out a ton. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and become a Locked On Everydayer with us. Whether you're watching or listening to today's show, come on over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's the best way to get in touch with us and be part of the conversation. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can make every moment more because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. All you got to do is visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. Thanks for being here, everybody. My name is John Frisch. I'm one half of the Super Halo Bros and the co-host of Locked On Angels. Usually I'm here and I say, I'm John, and that's my brother Mike. And he says, I'm Mike, and that's my brother John. But Mike is heading out of town for his anniversary this weekend. So you got me for Fanmail Friday, and I'm looking forward to answering all your questions today. First of all, it's our third season here at Locked On Angels, and we're here 5 days a week talking Angels baseball with you Monday through Friday, every single weekday. On today's show, it's Fanmail Friday. We're getting to all your questions about the roster, the rotation, playing time, the lineup. It's a lot, but it's all worth discussing. So let's get into it. And we're going to start at the top with the offense and the lineup. Luco2 on Instagram and Depressed Angels fan on Twitter kind of had similar questions, so I've grouped them to get together. Luco02 on Instagram said, is it time to be concerned over the inability to get hits with runners in scoring position? And Depressed Angels fan on Twitter said, we have a big runners in scoring position problem. Again this season, we get a man on third with 0 or 1 out, but nobody can ever just hit a fly ball. Why does this continue to be a problem? I like those questions, and I've drilled down to the problem, and it's lineup construction. It's all about who's coming up with opportunities to hit runners in, with runners in scoring position opportunities. Listen to this. Miguel Sano and Brandon Drury, who you know have not had the greatest starts to 2024, especially Drury. He's a slow starter. Sano, who's been batting 5th, 6th, 7th, he's had 13 opportunities. He and Drury lead the team with 13 opportunities, 13 plate appearances with runners in scoring position. Sano has a 111 batting average and 1 RBI with runners in scoring position. Drury, who's been batting 5th and 6th, has a 0.83 batting average with 1 RBI with runners in scoring position. Again, they lead the team in opportunities to drive runners in with 13. Zach Neto has the next most opportunities with 12. Good news is he's got a 364 average and 5 RBIs, all 5 of his RBIs with that 364 average. Ward has had the next most runners in scoring position opportunities with 11. He's actually batting .500 with 7 RBIs in those situations. Trout has 10. Now you're going to laugh because with runners in scoring position, Trout has a 125 batting average. But if you zoom out a little bit, with runners on base, he's got a 313 average with 3 RBIs. And we know 4 of his RBIs came on solo shots. So the other 3 came from obviously runners on base. Ohapi has the next most opportunities with runners in scoring position with 9 chances. He's been batting 7th and 8th. Rendon has also had 9 at the leadoff spot, but he's been bad. A 0 average. He's only taken 1 walk, no RBIs. Aaron Hicks has bat 2nd, 5th, and 6th. He's the next most with 7 plate appearances with runners in scoring position. He's got a 143 average and 2 RBIs. So it comes down to this, guys. Miguel Sano, Brandon Drury, they've been in the middle of the order. They've been struggling there. Drury got off to a slow start last year, too. We mentioned the other day how when he got his Silver Slugger last year from his 22 season, he was like, I don't deserve this because I've been stinking. Well, he better get in gear soon because we need him to come through. But that means with them 5th and 6th most of the time, Drury and Sano have been getting all the opportunities and they've been missing out on those chances. We've got to see a lineup shakeup. We've got to see Ron Washington, who's been willing to change the lineup and move people around. I really like how he moved Moniak up to 2nd. I think that worked really well. But there's your problem with runners in scoring position. The wrong guys at the right time. And those guys are coming up with the most runners in scoring position opportunities out of everybody on this team. That needs to change. Jay Buckets 13 on Instagram said, how do we feel about this lineup? Anybody need to be put in more often? And then Sergio on Instagram also said, is it time to give Luis Rengifo a permanent starting position? I'm glad that both of these questions were asked because I'm putting them together because my answer to both, who needs to be in this lineup more and should Rengifo have a permanent position? My answer is Luis Rengifo. He needs to be in this lineup more often and possibly have a permanent position. With Sandoval struggling and Drury getting off to a slow start, it opens up the opportunity to put Rengifo in at second base, at DH, maybe sometimes at third, maybe sometimes at shortstop. But in those situations, you can move Drury over to first if Sandoval is out, or have Drury sit and put Sandoval in, whatever you want to do. Rengifo, at the very least, should be in every game against every single lefty. There's absolutely no reason not to do that. He crushes lefties because he's a switch hitter, and when he's batting from the right, he crushes lefties. He's also an excellent leadoff guy. He's had some success, in the middle of the order at like 3 and 4, but those are very small sample sizes, and they're usually from when Trout has been injured, especially like last year. Rengifo batting 3rd and 4th is good, but he's not going to do that with Trout in the lineup. So leadoff would be an excellent spot for Luis Rengifo. I think he needs to be in there doing that most days. Sonny Boy Gonzo on Instagram said, now that we're a couple weeks in, what's your new quote-unquote best lineups? Well, I think we let Rengifo lead off versus righties and lefties. Even though he's a better batter against lefties, he's a strong leadoff guy either way. In fact, I've got my lineups right here for you. If you're watching, if you're listening, I'll read them out for you so that you know what I'm talking about. But I've got Rengifo leading off versus righties, playing second base. I love Mickey Moniak in that second spot. I've got Trout, Ward, and O'Hoppe as my runners in scoring position guys because Trout's either going to hit a home run or get on base. Same with Taylor Ward. And if they're just on base and you want your number 5 guy to not be Sano or Brandon Drury, give it to O'Hoppe, man, because he's thrived with runners on base and hits very well and has home run potential every time, as we saw with that grand slam last Friday. So whether Trout or Ward hit runners in or get on base, they have O'Hoppe behind them. Rendon at 6th and Drury at 7th changes their job. I have Drury and Nolan Sandoval kind of interchangeable at first base at the 7th spot. But Rendon, he historically hits well with runners on base, but he also takes walks and he also works the count. And while we wait for Drury to get warm again, I think he needs to be down in the order. I can't see him in the middle of the order at 5th or 6th. He's got to be down around 7. The reason why I did that is because he can be interchangeable with Sandoval. At this point, their job is to get on base as the 7th hitter in the lineup. Nolan, he walks. And if you remind him that he's very good at that, then I think he gets some of his confidence back. Drury, he swings it. He's a swing first kind of guy. So if he's at 7, perhaps there's less pressure than the 5th spot. Again, every spot in the batting order has a job. And I think that Drury and Sandoval at 7th should know their job. Then Neto, who's been a great runners in scoring position guy. Let him drive in the 6 and 7 guys, but also potentially be on base for the occasional Joe Adell double or home run, whatever might happen there, because I have Joe Adell 9th in this order. That also gives Rengifo the chance to hit with runners on, which he does very well. And then versus lefties, all I'm doing here, I'm still having Rengifo lead off. I'm swapping Moniak for Hicks because Hicks should only be in the lineup versus lefties. I never want to see Hicks in there against righties, and I never want to see him in the same lineup as Mickey Moniak. Just doesn't make any sense. A lot of the logic here is the same. Set up your runners in scoring position guys for better opportunities. Put another RISP guy like Neto at 8th to drive in 5, 6, and maybe 7. That sort of situation. So again, I'm leading off with Rengifo no matter what. Moniak's my second. Trout's my third. Ward, cleanup. Logan O'Hoppe, fifth. Rendon, sixth. You could have Drury and Nolan switching off at seventh. Zach Neto, eighth. Joe Adell, ninth in my theoretical John Frisch manager lineup. There you go. Let's go back to more questions we have here. Ramon Sanchez on Twitter said, aside from pitching, we are really struggling offensively. It had me thinking back to what Wash said about pulling your own weight. If you're not, then you're off the team. So who can we bring up from the minors to help the offense? Will DFAing someone be what it takes to wake these guys up? When I think about pulling your weight, I think about playing time. How many times are we going to run Miguel Sano out there, who should only be off the bench or sometimes starting in a getaway game where it's a day game after a night game and then they have a flight to catch? Those are the only times Sano should be in this lineup, is when he's coming off the bench for a pinch hit situation or if it's a day game after a night game. Drury's off to a bad start, which is natural for him, but that should open the door for more Luis Rengifo. Shonowell's lost his confidence and needs to remember what his job is. It's to get on base. There's no need to DFA anybody at this point because, honestly, there's no one to replace them with unless you're excited to see Ray Adrianza or Willie Calhoun on this team. And my guess is you're not that excited to see those guys. Maybe Jake Marisnick, but I see Marisnick coming up in the event of an injury. I'm glad he stayed with the organization. He's in AAA, and he had a really great spring. So, really, it comes down to everyone pulling their weight needs to be rewarded with playing time. And right now, there are definitely players in this lineup that are not pulling their weight, who shouldn't be playing. And I think that Wash is smart enough to see that, recognize that, and make those changes. I know day-to-day we get frustrated, but honestly, it's been 12 games. I think we're going to start seeing some changes soon, but hopefully they are sooner rather than later. Hey, I want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. The Angels are playing the Red Sox tonight in Boston at 4:10 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, 12 games in. And some of our everydayers are ready to take a chainsaw to this team. Let's talk about why that's unwise. Coming right up. Locked On Angels is brought to you by Ibotta. This spring, flowers won't be the only thing that you're growing, because when you use Ibotta, you can watch your cash back grow with every purchase that you make. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies and even toys. How about that? Parents, go for it. Guys who collect things, toys, go for it. Here's the thing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year, and that's just by going and scanning their receipt into Ibotta. It's super easy. That could cover the cost of an entire grocery trip, buy the flight that you've been eyeballing, or the game that you've been dying to go to, or maybe that fancy dinner you need to take that special someone out to. Other apps are going to give you points that don't amount to very much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or even convert them into gift cards, which is always nice as well. Join the over 50 million savers and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy. Ooh, I like Best Buy, and much, much more. Right now, Ibotta is offering listeners of Locked On Angels $5 just for trying Ibotta. All you got to do is use the code LOCKEDONMLB when you sign up and register with Ibotta. So go to the App Store or the Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash right away, cash back. Use that code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store. And when you sign up, you got to use that code LOCKEDONMLB. This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Everydayers, it's time for you to make the switch from your regular sports viewing and check out Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day, covering the top stories across the sports world. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis opinions, and news from people who actually know what they're talking about. And when it comes to your team or your favorite sports teams, you can trust that the local experts of Locked On have you covered. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Speaking of your team every day, the Angels play the Red Sox at 4:10 Pacific time at, I almost said Wrigley Field, Fenway Park. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. Come on, oldest stadium, second oldest stadium. Yeah, what can you say? Listen, we got a bunch of questions here about roster moves and decisions that need to be made. In fact, I know Mike and I talked about this yesterday about Joe Adell, but we did get a few more questions about Joe Adell. So I'm going to read these couple questions to you, and then I think I'm going to answer them all together. So let me go to Stephanie Battaglino on Twitter, one of our favorite everydayers. She says, "Hey guys, greetings from Australia. So what are we doing with Joe Adell? Okay, he needs to remember how to slide, yes, but why not put him in there and let him play with most of his teammates not named Trout, and I would say Ward, not hitting? Why not plug him in the lineup and see what happens? Thank you." Danger is my middle name on Instagram said, "Should Joe Adell start over Hicks? I think his time has come and gone. He has had his opportunities." I think he's referring to Hicks there, but we'll continue with the questions. Kevin McLeod on Twitter said, "No expectations for 2024, but is it time to move on from Adell? Playing time is limited, but one can't make boneheaded 2020 rookie mistakes. Would like to see Adams in that spot," referring to Jordan Adams. Well, let me start with Stephanie. Stephanie, 100% Joe Adell should be in there every single day. Like I said yesterday, he's had less than a season's worth of plate appearances over 5 seasons. Okay, so he's never had a full season's worth of plate appearances, even in the 5 years he's been up in the majors. He'll probably hit that this year if he continues to play. But again, I think that we need to temper our expectations with the fact that he's never played a full season's worth of major league games. And I think that's an issue. Why wouldn't the Angels use this version of the team this season to get a better understanding of who he is? Because listen, you can't tell me that he's a bust until he gets consistent playing time and becomes a bust, right? Going up and down from the majors to the minors and maybe playing a few games here and a few games there and having less than a full season's worth of plate appearances. You can't make a decision based on that. So this is the year. Will Joe sink or swim? I think he'll swim, but he's got to have the playing time to do it. And so far he hasn't had that. And so far this season, he hasn't had that. So I think you got to go all in with Joe Adell this season. Figure out what you have. And if it doesn't work, then you make your decision at the end of the year. Then all of us who said, "Oh, he's a bust," great. I applaud you. But he's got to have a full season first. Danger is my middle name. 100% Joe Adell should be in there over Aaron Hicks. Hicks is much better as a right-handed hitter against lefties because he is a switch hitter and should only be replacing Moniak against lefties. No reason why he should be in there over Joe Adell. Kevin, to answer your questions about moving on from Joe Adell, the steal, total bonehead mistake, total bonehead move. I get it. It's embarrassing. It was embarrassing to the team. It's frustrating. I think it's silly. We covered that yesterday for sure. But like Mike said yesterday, we live in a highlight world where we broadcast and signal all the lowlights that these players go through. And if you've been watching Adell since 2023, his outfield defense has improved tremendously. It is so much better than what it's been in the past. And I think people cling to 2020, 21, and his outfield issue. I specifically watched last year to see if he would improve, and he most certainly did. And the stats will back that up. But Kevin, to your point about Jordan Adams, honestly, he's of the same school of thought when it comes to Billy Epler drafts. Billy Epler drafted a bunch of big athletic dudes that are really sporty, who could be, wide receivers in footballs, or maybe you'd pick them for your volleyball team or pick them to be on your basketball team. These guys can do it all. But the thing that Joe Adell and Jordan Adams lack is the gritty baseball mentality. And if you're a baseball fan or you've played baseball, You know what I'm talking about. And you know who defines that? Is Zach Neto. There is a world of difference between being an all-around awesome athletic guy and Zach Neto, because baseball is a very specific kind of sport. I don't think that just anybody can thrive in the game of baseball. And I think that's true of Joe Adell, and I think that's true of Jordan Adams. Now, am I willing to give Joe Adell a chance? Absolutely. I think that he can overcome his deficiencies and be a decent player. I don't think he's going to light the world on fire, but you got to give him a chance. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Adams had one of those off the glove home runs that Adell did in 2020. So the point is here, you'd be getting more of the same with Jordan Adams if you called him up. Joey Inglace on Twitter messaged us. He said, is it finally time to move on from Suarez, Theis, and possibly Adell? Had them for years, and none of them have done anything positive for this team. All have done more harm than good. Well, I don't know that I agree with the more harm than good, but let me just run down the list of guys that you mentioned. Obviously, we just got done covering Adell. I don't think that he's done more harm than good, but let me talk about Jose Suarez. They gave him a shot in the rotation at the end of 2021, all of 2022, and the beginning of 23. And you remember he stunk last year. And that's why he finds himself in the long relief mop-up role that Jaime Barria had last year. And to be honest, that's the perfect spot for a guy like Jose Suarez. If we don't have Jose Suarez on this team, then we're going to have another arm who's not very good as a starter doing the same job as Jose Suarez. So as long as you have him, why not keep him, and why not have him do this job? The Angels need an arm to eat those 3 or 4 innings, especially when they're behind in a blowout like they were against the Baltimore Orioles, just trying to save time. Suarez has been doing that fairly well. I think, was he giving up 2 runs in those mop-up roles? So he's in the exact right role that he needs to be in, and every team has one of those guys. And if it's not Suarez, it's going to be somebody else. I don't think there should be any expectations with Suarez, but I don't think that they need to get rid of him either. Matt Theis, I think it's a bit dramatic to say that he's done more harm than good. Yes, I understand. He had the catcher's interference twice in the same game last year and once this year. And on Wednesday, that wasn't great either because he couldn't find the ball. But you know what? Soriano's got to tell him where the ball is. That's a pitcher's job right there. And maybe if Ohapi was back there, he would have found it more quickly. But listen, Theis, he filled in last year with Chad Wallach in a role that neither of them expected. And Theis actually had a good catching year in 2023. Behind the dish, he had 3 blocks above average, along with the likes of Martin Maldonado, who's one of the best catchers and framers in the game, and Will Smith of the Dodgers. He had a -1 catcher framing run, so think about how well a catcher can steal a strike for the pitcher, even though it's out of the zone. Maybe they move their glove and get it back in the zone. That's right in line with Gabriel Moreno of the Diamondbacks and actually better than Will Smith of the Dodgers. His pop time, 1.98 seconds, along with the likes of Salvador Perez, Kyle Higashioka, Alejandro Kirk, all great catchers. He had a 0 in catchers caught stealing above average, so he didn't get any extra guys out at second or third, but he did get all the ones he should have got. You know who else had a 0 caught stealing above average? Adley Rutschman of the Baltimore Orioles, just trying to save time. The truth is, Matt Theis is exactly who he needs to be. He's exactly who he is. He's a backup catcher, and he makes great swing decisions when he's at the plate, but the problem is he doesn't make good contact. His swing is way too loopy. I still contend he needs to fix his swing and emphasize contact. I call it the A button swing for a reason, because when you push that A button, he does the same swing over and over and over again. Guys got to figure it out at the plate. But as far as a defensive catcher, I don't think that he's done more harm than good, in my opinion. Sean X, Paul X on Instagram said, how much longer do we give Sandoval? He clearly isn't improving. I get that there's a problem with Sandoval, but there really isn't much of a choice right now, is there, in terms of how long of a leash we give Patrick Sandoval? My thing is, this is the year to see if he improves, because there's no more excuses. We've complained about Matt Wise the last 2 years, and now we have Barry Enright actually working with these guys and doing a good job. Clearly, they've emphasized getting to strike one as fast as possible, but Sandoval's problem has been his control. Now, another thing they might consider, he's got minor league options. He might benefit from a trip down to work on mechanics. I also think Enright might want to work with him directly rather than doing that. But I'm not going to go off these 3 starts to start the year. We're frustrated with Sandoval. We've talked about that a million times so far this season. But to me, again, just like Joe Adell, it's a sink or swim year. You either got it or you don't. And this is the year to find out because there's no more excuses. It's the perfect team and the perfect time for Patrick Sandoval to find out. Alex J. Ramirez on Instagram said, should we trade Sandoval for Drew Thorpe of the White Sox? He's a Cal Poly legend and big league ready. Alex, Sandoval is not going to get the Angels Drew Thorpe. I'm sorry to say. The White Sox are terrible right now, and they just lost 3 of their key batters. They traded Dylan Cease, to get Thorpe, and they really don't need another arm like Sandoval. They're doing just fine with the arms that they have. Crochet has gotten off to a good start this year. They are building for the future right now, and they're doing a decent job at it, surprisingly. So, no, I don't think they'd be interested in that trade. They need all the good players they can get and keep the ones they already have. Anthony Rodriguez on Twitter said, after 2 weeks, I truly believe we signed our relievers and veterans to flip at the deadline. No other reason Hicks or Sano should be starting over Joe and Mickey. I agree about the relievers. I think that they'll be easy to flip, but I don't think Sano and Hicks are getting playing time to be showcase pieces for a trade later on. I think they got as many starts as they did to start this season because that was the lineup that was working at the end of spring training. But since then, we've seen Wash make some changes, and I hope he continues to do that, especially for guys like Adell and Moniak. They need to be in there because this is the kind of year it should be. Play the guys you need to get answers for. Now, regarding the relievers, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Texas traded Cole Reagans to the Royals for Aroldis Chapman. Did it work out? Well, ask the World Series champion Texas Rangers if it worked out, because it did. Did it work out for the Royals? Absolutely. They have Cole Reagans right now, who, when he got traded and became a starter, he got 12 starts after that trade, had a 2.64 ERA, a 1.07 whip, and an 89-27 strikeout to walk rate over 71 2/3 innings. 5 wins for the last place Royals last year, 31.1% strikeout rate, and an average exit velo of 87.2 miles per hour. And he's off to a great start this year. So the Angels could trade some of those relievers and get lucky at the deadline. Finally, Dre Day 9000 on YouTube said, do you believe changes are coming with the roster at the end of the month or the beginning of next month? Releasing Hicks maybe to give Joe Adell more at-bats, maybe getting a solid backup catcher. I don't think releases are coming. I think they need the depth. They just need to change who's getting the playing time and what the lineup construction is going to look like. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is the place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn. Salespeople and those working in sales, LinkedIn has something for you. It's called the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers. Doing so will help you bring in higher revenue and increase your sales performance. The LinkedIn Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, be aware of key signals like job changes or which accounts you should prioritize. It also shows you hidden allies, so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar, just like Mike Trout. Today, just go to linkedin.com/lockedon to get started. A couple more questions about the starting rotation and some other questions. Angel N said, what are your thoughts on our pitchers trying to be perfect sometimes, which causes them to fall behind in the count? Seems like they're trying to strike everyone out instead of attacking batters and letting the defense do the work. honestly, Angel, the biggest problem I've seen this year so far is control and mechanics. Canning and Sandoval are really good examples of this. Some of the guys are meant to have strikeout stuff like Detmers. Some of the other guys are meant to allow contact like Tyler Anderson. And to me, Sandoval and Canning are kind of in between guys. Sandoval's more of a strikeout guy, but right now he can't throw strikes. Canning can also get strikeouts, but he also induces a lot of soft contact. So think of it this way. The two extremes are Detmers being a strikeout guy. On the other end of the spectrum, you got Anderson being a contact guy. Canning and Sandoval are somewhere in the middle, but until they get their mechanics down and are able to control their pitches better, they're going to struggle. They're going to have a hard time. Gavin Steck said, how worried are you about the pitching that we've seen so far this season? Gavin Steck on Instagram. Sorry, Gavin. What I've liked so far, let me tell you what I've liked and what worries me. Detmers and Anderson have obviously had a lot of success with Barry Enright, helping them get back to the kinds of pitchers they should be. Adam Simber, who I'm a big fan of, has obviously recovered from his injuries that held him back last year. Estevez seems to have sacrificed a little bit of velocity to have better control, but he's getting strikeouts and he's getting lazy flyouts, which I like. And then Matt Moore, obviously a pro in every single situation. What's really worrying me about the pitching is the middle relief. I know we've talked about Sandoval and Canning and whatnot, but the middle relief, Cisneros, Zuniga, who's been hurt, Luis Garcia. Garcia's been better recently. I am glad they brought up Hunter Strickland because he throws strikes. I think a lot of the changes that take place when Stevenson comes back in a few weeks are going to be very good for this bullpen. I think it's kind of going to move everybody back an inning, which will be great to see. But having said that about the middle relief, I think they've used them in the right moment, like being blown out by the Orioles or being behind in the game. But you'd like for them to keep the score at a reachable level, not like what Cisneros did the other day. You want the Angels to be able to come back in those moments. PS 091998 on Instagram. Thanks for your phone number. Do you think Wantz or Rosenberg will be called up when we need another start? Right now, it looks like Soriano is going to stay in the rotation until Chase Silseth comes back. However, Rosenberg and Wantz are pitching really well right now. Rosenberg, so far in AAA, is 2-0 with a 1.38 ERA over 13 innings pitched. That's pretty good when you're in the Pacific Coast League. And then Andrew Wantz is 1-1 with a 2.93 ERA over 15 and a third innings. He's got 23 strikeouts. So I say let those guys keep working on it down there. Give them a confident year. And maybe we'll be surprised with some of our starting pitching options coming into spring next year. Rob Talks 7 on Instagram says, are the Angels better off with Soriano as a starter, or would Plesac or Caden Dana be better options? Honestly, Wantz, Rosenberg, and even Davis Daniel are better options than Plesac right now. Caden Dana shouldn't be anywhere near this roster in the majors. There's no reason to rush him. Let him actually be somebody that the Angels develop for the future. Do not bring him up because we don't have the get Trout and Ohtani to the playoffs pressure that would have probably gotten Dana up to the majors maybe at this year or at some point, but we don't have that pressure anymore. They need to develop guys how you should develop guys, and that's giving them time in the minor leagues. Tiger Jones 234 on Instagram said, do you guys think Soriano to the rotation is the move? Personally, I'd like to see him develop in the minors for regular starts once Chase Silseth comes back, because you'll have Stevenson back soon, Robert Stevenson back in the pen. I think they should keep Strickland and let Soriano be in the minor leagues. This weird in-between starter and reliever thing that he's doing is not how it's normally done. So I question that, and I think that he's great for right now to fill in for Silseth, but he needs to be down in the minors. Now, in the future, I think he has a place in the rotation for sure, but you also got to see how his arm holds up because he's had 2 Tommy Johns in the past. That's why he was a reliever at first. Finally, SC Halo on Twitter says, you guys keeping track of the number of losses that, quote, should have been wins? I have at least 2 now. What about you? I agree, but I'm going to say it's 1 game and then 2 half games. So yes, 2 total, but 1 game and then 2 different games, like half the games. And here's what I'm saying. Against the Rays on Tuesday, don't give up the 2-run lead in the second inning, Sandy. That should have been a win. They should have been able to hold that. My first half game is on Wednesday. If they didn't have that pass ball, wild pitch situation, that could have been a game that they win, but they never had the lead in that one. And then the home opener, maybe that's my other half game. Ohapi tied it. Then the Angels gave up the run and then they tied it again. So At that point, it was anyone's game, but Soriano gave up those home runs. So to me, one game for sure they should have won. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Don't forget that the Angels are playing the Red Sox today at 4:10 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels. Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and connect with Mike and I on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros. Monday on Locked On Angels, we're going to recap the weekend. How is this Boston series going to go? It's a rematch of last weekend. Maybe O'Hoppe can hit another grand slam. I would love to see that. All right, friends, we hope you have a great weekend. Until then, my name is John, and my brother Mike will be back here on Monday. We look forward to seeing you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday. I have no one to banter with. Mike's not here. Who am I going to witty banter with at the end of the show? I'm sad.